I'm joined here with Nick today to talk about his very first White Dwarf. It's issue 134, and welcome, Nick.
Thanks. Yeah. So this is issue 134, and I think it's dated February 91. So I think I was about 11 or 12 years old, and I saw this issue, this White Dwarf, in a branch of W.H. Smith's. I think I was on a shopping trip with a couple of friends, and I saw the words Heroquest, and what it says in the top right is includes new rules for Space Crusade and Heroquest, and that's what made me pick it up. Okay, great, news page. So it tells us a bit about Heroquest and Space Crusade. I think it mentions the fact that the latest expansions for Heroquest are the dungeon design kit, and it mentions Against the Overhorde. Now, these I think were two that I never bought. I got the first two expansions, which were Kellar's Keep and Return of the Witch King. So I perhaps had those at the time, but I don't think I did actually get those further two that it mentions here. It's got mentions Eavy Metal painting demos, which I presume was going on at some of the shops, games workshops. White Dwarf price had been stuck at £1.50 for a while. It's going up to £1.95. Those are the days, eh?
Yeah.
Here we go. The new release for the orks is mentioned.
Yep.
That's going to be relevant when we move further on into this issue. Talks about a couple of stores in Canada, maybe the States as well. The Baneblade. This is an interesting thing about the Baneblade. There'd been I didn't know at the time, but there'd been like a how to make your own Baneblade or something, and it was talking about the fact that there was a hexagon-shaped slaughter base used presumably for the turret hatch or something, and people had phoned up and asked to get a hold of those, and they didn't make them anymore, so they said you could use a round one.
Right.
And then the funniest thing, I think, is the final thing. Simon Nicholson, where are you?
Yep.
We've lost touch with you. Please contact us. This is obviously, I mean, the thing to say about this is kind of obvious. This is before the internet. So, like, I mean, this is my first White Dwarf, right? So I didn't know anything about anything at this point in time. But it's kind of interesting how subsequent to this, like most people, I bought religiously these issues because you had to know what was going on, and without the internet, it was the only source of information about things. But an interesting news page anyway. Okay. Space Crusade, yeah. So in this issue, we've got a lot on Space Crusade, Advanced Space Crusade, Heroquest, Advanced Heroquest, and I'm not sure if at this point I actually knew anything about Space Crusade, other than it was a game that was released. But later on, I did, because some of my friends from school, we got together and started playing Space Crusade, and this magazine was a kind of gateway to sort of taking us from that into 40k. But in this issue, we have extra rules for your Space Crusade game to use Terminators, which are referred to here. And that's a really nice sort of like addition to the game. Of course, what you need to do then is buy some Terminators, unless you've got like Space Hulk or something. That's perfectly possible, I suppose. You might have to end up, but I think, one thing you notice is at the back of this magazine, they've got in the mail order section, like a lot of the models that you can use. I'm not sure they were the Terminators, but certainly things like Skaven and Space Orks, which we'll see later. So yeah, how to use Terminators in Space Crusade, including the heavy weapons, I can see. Okay, so here we can see the die sheet roll, which is, interesting if you played Space Crusade, you know what all this means. But also what you can see here is that there's some equipment cards for orks, which you find out in the next few pages. It's because in addition to being able to play the game with a Terminator squad instead of a normal spaceman squad, you can also, it's got rules to bring an orc squad, which is a bit random or off the wall. So yeah, I mentioned the equipment cards that you would get 4 of when you're a Marine player. They're things like, for example, like a scanner or a medikit or a force field or something like that. Useful stuff to give to your squad members. Well, the orcs, of course, if you're going to take them, would naturally have different kinds of equipment, and so White Dwarf, sort of helpfully gives you a bunch of orc equipment cards that you can take 4 of if you decide to choose an orc squad. So you can see the first 3 of those here, like frag stick bombs, or a freebooter, which is like an extra orc that's a freebooter that joins your squad with stats like a knob. Yeah, this is all really cool. This is what, like, my friends who love Space Crusade, like, were just absolutely mesmerized by. This is so cool.
No, frothing at the mouth.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Like, they just didn't have the models to do it, but that's what like got them, that step beyond just playing Space Crusade into the world of Warhammer, I suppose. Okay, so in addition to bringing Terminators, you could also bring Space Marine Scouts, and I don't think we ever did this. They don't sound that great, to be honest, as an alternative, because they're lighter armored and they move faster, which is potentially a good idea, but actually in a game which is largely you've got to clear out a whole section full of aliens. You really just want like maximum firepower rather than maximum speed. So they have some interesting rules like diving prone. So if they're shot at, they can sort of move a square and lie on their side, to sort of dive out of the way, and then they spend the next turn getting up or something, or reducing their movement to stand up again. That sounds quite cool. Yeah. They're just generally lighter armored and not quite as shooty as your normal Space Marines.
Yeah,
but they get to keep their 4 equipment cards. So yeah, I mean, it's a shame we never tried them, but yeah, they didn't sound great. Here we get to see the stats of the Space Marine Scouts and the orcs as well. So as I say, there was rules for orcs, and they had a heavy plasma gun, classic picture there. Bolt gun, back in the days when orcs had bolt guns. And then the knob, as with the Space Marines, you have a leader who's a knob in this case, and as opposed to a sergeant. And as with the Marines, you get to choose one of 3 sort of weapon outfits. You got the hand-to-hand combat option, which is your power claw and chainsword. Then you got your sort of shootiest version, which is just the plasma pistol. Which, I mean, the red dice represent sort of they do more damage. I mean, the higher numbers on the white dice have got lower numbers. So having white dice for hand-to-hand and red dice for firing represents a shootier option there. And then the middle option, middle of the road, is you got a bolt pistol power sword, which gives you sort of red hand-to-hand, white for firing. Of course, the power claw and chain sword gives you no shooting at all, just maximum dice for your hand-to-hand. I think it was a good idea to go hand-to-hand. The option. Interesting for the scouts, there's only one option for the sergeant. He's just got to have his bolt pistol and chainsword, so you don't get the choice. Whereas with the Marines in the box, you do get to choose 3 options for the Sarge. And you've only got one option for heavy weapons, which is your heavy bolter for the scouts. Same with the orcs, actually. They've only got heavy plasma guns. Whereas in the box, the Marines come with like a few different options. There's a plasma gun, a assault cannon, and a missile launcher. So it's all interesting. And here's the sort of wordy bits about how to bring an orc mob. Interestingly, I think if you have an orc mob, you bring 10 orcs. Because otherwise, normally you'd only use 5 Marines, 5 Terminators, 5 Scouts. So if you come with an orc squad, you get a whole mob of 10, which we did do a few times. Yeah, it's fun. Okay, here's the rest of the equipment cards and also the orders. So in addition to 4 equipment cards of your choice, you get to choose 1 order. An order is something you get to use once per mission. Lets you do things like shoot twice or double move or something. Get a Zogian move on, it's like a double move, I think. Or get the gits is you can fire and charge into hand-to-hand in the same turn. So it's obviously a cool thing to do at the right time. I mean, also you'd find out when you play Space Crusade, you start the game with 4. You start the first mission with 4 equipment cards in one order. But as you hopefully, progress, through the campaign, because the sort of missions are set out in, just like HeroQuest, it's sort of a series. You can, be promoted from lowly sergeant up to something more impressive like chapter master perhaps. And each time you increase a rank, you might get like an extra equipment card or an extra order thing. So in theory, you could get up to like using all of the equipment cards and the order perhaps. And anyway, ones you can use for the orcs, which is great because otherwise you'd be reusing the marine ones. It wouldn't make much sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so the alien player would obviously be feeling left out, I suppose, if the marine player's got all these new options. And so this is where, the alien player gets their reinforcement. So we've got Tyrannid warriors and Gene Stealer hybrids to add to the menagerie of things that came in the box. Tyrannids are big old monsters with swords and death spitters and stuff, and Gene Stealer hybrids are like something in between a Gene Stealer with his claws and a guy with a gun. So there's a few extra weapons. I noticed missile launcher, autocannon, and conversion. I think conversion beam is completely new, which feels like a totally broken weapon because it's I think that the tougher you are, the more likely you are to die. So it's almost like auto kills Terminators. So if you bought a Terminator squad and you see one of these guys, it's going to be a bad day. Lovely. It's these plastic or metal models, I wonder.
The top hybrid is on the right-hand side is a metal one. The bottom ones, I believe, are plastic.
Yeah, I think that's probably right. They look a bit plastic, don't they? Yeah. So exactly, these are lovely, aren't they? I mean, love to be playing with some of these. I mean, they're generally pretty good. I think. Yeah. I'm not sure. I don't recall. I think you use them instead of other models. Perhaps they just sort of switch out one for one. Perhaps I can't remember. But yeah, I mean, nice to have some shooty Gene Stealers.
Yeah.
With heavy weapons, and the Tyranids look pretty scary too with those dice, as you'd expect. But nice options to bring if you've got those models and want to spice things up a bit.
Yeah, for sure. Here we are.
Okay. So this is what I was really interested in when I bought it, because I think I had Advanced Heroquest. So this to me was like, oh great, wow, this is another quest. And this is, I mean, it's really interesting to read. I mean, this is, by reading this, you kind of learn quite a lot, even if you know nothing else. I mean, you learn about troll slayers, and what this quest's all about is a troll slayer called Killy Theckerson, who kind of appears, or you meet him. He's trying to return. It's a bit bizarre, really, when you think about it. By the time it makes sense, and I don't know why. So he joins you, and he's like a henchman, and he fights with a magic warhammer. He's the one he's trying to return, and he's asking you to join him and kill all the Skaven. So it's an interesting quest. It's I mean, if you've played Advanced HeroQuest, it's got Skaven as the main antagonists again, just like the ones in the box. But it gives you the rules for like more different unit types. And it's kind of surprising they weren't in the base game actually, because they're quite standard these days, like slaves, slave masters or beast masters, gutter runners, I think. So this is all great. So I mean, it's a very long article which covers everything you'd need, to play quite a detailed Advanced HeroQuest. Yeah, but nice. I mean, you haven't had Skaven in normal HeroQuest before, so here's a. I suppose if you had like me, you had the Advanced HeroQuest and the base HeroQuest set and nothing else. It gave you a use for your Skaven in the and I do actually remember buying these, the trolls and the rat ogres pictured here. I bought them later on, just purely for the purposes of like playing this, but I didn't buy anything else. So I've got a couple of those rogues, and a couple of those trolls, or ditto.
Yes, please, mate.
Yeah. Okay. So this next section is what kind of sort of really caught my attention, and it's the sample Goff Warband by Andy Chambers. It just looks amazing, and I just had no idea what this was because we're now completely outside of my understanding, really. So the funny thing is, it doesn't really explain. Maybe it does. Maybe I just didn't understand. But it doesn't really explain too much. It does say orcs in Warhammer 40,000. But yeah, I mean, I just didn't know what the game was at all. So I read this, wondering what on earth it's all about. Like I saw things like points, and battles. But I was still at a point where I didn't even know how. I didn't really know much about wargaming or anything about wargames. So I didn't really know, how you even played them. So it talks about how he, chose his war boss, and he rolled some random stuff on the previous page, and now he's talking about a retinue of knobs, of which there are 6 with their own equipment, each with a name. He's named them all. They've all got their own slightly different stuff, which may be random, or I think he just talks, about how he chooses. I love the way he sort of says, "I'm a pleasing selection of power fists." I'll go for a roll on the assault weapons chart for each of them. This gives me a pleasing selection of power fist as well as plasma pistol. So a lot of it's random. It seems a little bit suspicious how how his things match the models and what have you. But he might have done a bit of conversion, perhaps, or maybe they made the models based on what he rolled. I don't know. Yeah. So the thing I was picking up from this was that in this game, you somehow allocate points to things. You somehow randomly roll on some. I didn't know where these tables. I didn't know what Ego was. I didn't know where this was all coming from. So it was all a bit of a mystery to me. But I could see, that this correlated to the picture of stuff. So he was selecting models to make a big army. Third mob, the knobs mob. Have a selection of guys. He's now got 1,000 points at this point. So this is his core, he can use for 1,000-point battles. And then I think he's going to get some extra stuff to go for bigger battles. Nice. And this is the nice thing about this army, is it's got a selection of different clans. Even though it's got different clans, it still looks, amazing. Like it's not all uniform, but it still looks great. Bad Moon mob, Evil Sons mob, freebooters are fantastic, aren't they? So it looked for, it'd be great to see those. Oh, runts. Yeah, I remember these. The Gretchen, basically, the runt bot, which seems to give them a force field or something, I think, suggests. And then Odd Bits seems to be the vehicles. So we've got a Dreadnought, classic old Gretchen crude Dreadnought with heavy bolter and power claw, custom force field. Then some artillery in the form of a hop splat field gun. That's the one that bounces all over the place, killing probably more orcs than enemies. I love these this idea that let's use this simple kind of icon of the sort of, is it like a horned helmet? And let's put that on the shields, but also on the top of all of the banners, both physically and also like a circle picture. But then there's all these other glyphs that kind of each one sort of represents a different individual. For the retinue. Yeah. So now we've got the other clans and their back banners and designs. This is really nice, isn't it? Just nice to see how this is then put into practice in the actual models. Cool little pictures, little annotations. Yeah, this is nice. Tell you how to paint. It's the standard method, I think, isn't it? It's like base coat, wash, highlights, add a bit of skull white to your colours, a bit of chaos black for the shading, that kind of thing. Yeah, and then you'll see the Heavy Metal standard on the next page, the base, and then you've got really nice ones at the bottom. So, yeah, I think most people's would be more similar to the first picture than the last, but no, not necessarily that difficult. I mean, maybe the freehand on the glyphs was a bit tricky for most people, but you could certainly give that a fair go. That would be not too demanding. Lining, that's another thing you can do with your painting, isn't it?
Yes, true.
A fine line along the edges of clothing, belts, mounts, etc. Yeah, bad moons. These are nice. Love their little hoods. And then the runts, with a question mark over, sort of bringing guys with what presumably is like swords and shields to a.
I love this idea. I love
sci-fi.
the concept of this. Yeah, I love this. And someone very kindly donated to me a runt bot. So
Yeah,
I really look forward to putting that together along with some oldhammer goblins with shields like this, and have the runt master there. And yeah, I think that's a wonderful concept. I love how that sort of it's the splicing between fantasy and 40k, which was very much part of the Rogue Trader era, and I really like
yeah.
the concept.
Oh,
Yeah,
cool. Freebooters. Yeah, these look great. The yeah, all of them look like pirates, don't they? I suppose that's the idea.
I love it. Yeah,
yeah, and these knobs in the power armor immediately look amazing with their back banners.
yeah,
Yeah, and they're sort of cool looking weapons and armor, and also these these household boys look nice with their checked design.
yeah.
Yeah, bunch of goths, not with axes and for once, just looking like punks. For some reason, with red mohawks.
Yeah.
Oh yes, it's like the big mob of goths.
Mm.
I like their red shoulder pads. It's just classic sort of, or a slightly orangey red that's a staple of second edition, isn't it? But it's here.
Yeah.
And look at this picture with the battle wagon and the dreadnought and the vehicles. It's great, isn't it?
Yeah.
I like the banners on everything. Everything's got a banner. That's how 40k used to be. Okay, it's the final page of well, maybe not the final, but another page of painting or converting. How we got the
Now this is
miniature.
actually Mike McVeigh doing this. So this is the expert standard. So if you want to go to the the top, and to grace the pages of White Dwarf, this is the sort of standard you want to get to.
Yeah, and it's not just painting; it's converting, isn't it? Because I think probably all of these models are converted in some way. It explains how they did it as well. Yeah, but yeah, this was great, very characterful. Obviously, the guy pulling or pushing back his brain into his head is a funny one. The guy holding on to a snotling. Is it a snotling? Yeah, I think it's a snotling. There's another good one. Marauder miniatures. I mean, it was a bit of a mystery why that was a separate thing, but I think most people also were wondering. But anyway, it's got lovely models, well presented and painted, so immediately you want to buy them. It's got the prices on the left. The Hydra, Chimera, Cockatrice, look lovely. I didn't have any of these, but they're obviously would be very nice to own. And of course, tying in with the Heroquest mission, just if you want to get a model for representing Kilithekis, Marauder are the company you need to contact. And likewise for the trolls, which were pictured in black and white earlier on. Here we have full colour painted versions. So I bought probably, I don't know, maybe I bought them in white in Games Workshop rather than online. So online can exist over the phone, but I bought two trolls, 2 for £2.99. It says at the bottom, right? I bought the bottom left one with it, and I still own it to this day. It's even with me in Japan. And I think the other one I had was possibly the blue one with the stone at the top middle.
Yep.
But I like these. I'd like to get all of them. As was sometimes the case in White Dwarfs this era, you get how to make something cool. And here we had how to make a Warhammer 40,000 orc building out of, I don't know what it was out of, styrofoam perhaps. But yeah, like it's your classic style of all in black and white, step by step how to do it. Safety first. Make sure you use a sharp blade. It's much more safe than a rusty old blade, as they always tell you. Yeah, here we go. That's what it will look like. You hope at the bottom. It may not. It may look a little bit different. Yeah, it's nice. It's a simple one. It's within most people's remit, and it looks great. I mean, what's not to like?
Yeah.
I think at a later point in time, I did have a go at making one of these. I think I even pushed the boat out and kind of made it half destroyed. So it was like involved some rubble as well as just being a fully. Because I think what you notice when you do play the game is that ruins sometimes are a bit more usable than enclosed buildings. But anyway, yeah, I did have a go at making it. Maybe not quite as it's presented here, but
yeah.
And I'm sure you've made many similar types of buildings.
Not really. I'm still dreaming of making mine, so I'll have to do it in the Splatter Natters in the future. Make these buildings following the templates here that Dave and Phil did, and make some Rogue Trader era style buildings. I think that'd be quite cool.
It's interesting actually how the style is quite different here, isn't it? From this is the kind of more muted sort of early era, whereas the orks are kind of painted a bit more like sort of second edition style, the brighter colours. But yeah, this is all really good. And when I looked at this, I didn't really know what any of the stuff was. Obviously, I didn't know really what Eldar were. I don't think, or Harlequins.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing is, when you get, which I did, like later on Rogue Trader, it doesn't tell you either, because this era is like sort of still Rogue Trader era, but it's moved on quite a bit. We've had things like we've had a few things have happened since, and they've released a lot of models since. So things like Harlequins are a thing. But they're not mentioned in Rogue Trader, the book. But they look really good, the Harlequins, obviously. This is a different artist. This is Adrian Dyson and Steve Mussered. Yeah, nice.
Yep, lovely.
Interesting Norse as well.
Yeah, it's got a bit of Norse. They did historical ranges of Norse, I think, and they had Norse as a fantasy range as well on 3rd edition.
Yeah, I think the swooping hawk looks amazing.
Yeah,
I think looking at that, you're like, oh my goodness, what's that? Why is there a guy with wings? Yeah.
But I love the squigs myself. The squigs down the bottom are really nice because I just don't think I've seen them painted before. So this person had done all of the squigs and painted every single one and put them a little. I believe they're 20 mil or the small. I was talking to you about that yesterday. I had familiars that I use for fantasy on these tiny little bases, little round bases from Citadel, and I think maybe this is where they came from. So I'm assuming they're 10 mil or 15 mil bases, these ones here.
Okay. I don't think I've really ever read this stuff because I've never played Advanced Space Crusade or owned it or know anyone that's played it. So a lot of the issues got this, these rules and it's a bit like, I suppose, the Heroquest rules were, one for advanced and one for normal. It's, again, they've got rules for using orks, perhaps Terminators, perhaps Tyranids in Advanced Space Crusade as well.
Yeah.
So here we are on the mail order page. And something I think I should say, because it surprises me that I did it actually, is that I phoned up after buying this. Yeah, so I was sufficiently curious about all of this stuff and like completely clueless. And because the internet doesn't exist and there's no other way of finding out, I phoned up mail order and just had a kind of conversation with them about what the hell is this? As an 11-year-old or 12-year-old kid, is it a game? And they basically explained to me that in simple terms that there's these two games, Warhammer 40k and Warhammer Fantasy. And he asked me, which one are you more interested in? But he kind of phrased the question like, are you more into sci-fi or fantasy? And like basically, I actually looked at this. It was the orks, Andy Chambers' Ork Army that I'd seen that was really appealing, and I wanted to buy and play that game. So I was really more interested in 40k actually, but I said, "Oh, fantasy." He goes, "Oh, well, then you need to go and buy the Warhammer Fantasy Battle rulebook." Buy that rulebook. Well, actually, I ended up buying Rogue Trader instead because actually it was the Space Orcs I was more interested in. But yeah, that was the conversation I had after buying this, and that's when I learned what a lot of this stuff was, and that's what prompted me to buy Rogue Trader. Now my copy's got all of these models like circled around like 20 times. Like, buy this. They've all been circled though. Yeah. I want all of them basically. Many of all of them. But didn't really buy any. All of them are just lovely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I like the slaves. Clan rat with halberd at the bottom. It's like looks completely naked. It's got a big halberd.
Yeah. Lovely, isn't it? Yeah. Wonderful.
Oh, nice advert for Space Crusade.
That's it. Resistance is useless, Nick.
Yeah.
And it certainly was for you and your group of guys at school. You basically played this, I'd imagine, hundreds of times.
Yeah, we played a lot of Space Crusade. Yeah. And the guy who owned the set painted. The funny thing is, I painted my Heroquest really badly using like enamel paints. Like the goblins were like sort of glowing green. But I remember my dad painted the gargoyle, and he did a fairly decent job of it.
Oh, that's good. That's nice.
Whereas my 11-year-old poor sort of painting sort of ruined all the rest of them. But my friend who owned Space Crusade, and that's what we played together much more frequently. He was a good painter, and he painted the whole set really well. So it was a pleasure to play Space Crusade with my friends back then. Yeah, and it was them that decided, let's go and get armies. Eventually, he got an orc army, which sadly meant that I felt like I shouldn't as well. So I never did get an orc army. I got Eldar, and then the other two got different coloured Marines, Blood Angels and Dark Angels, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And that's soon after we were playing with our models on the floor, with video sets as hills and rolled out Sabutio, the back of Sabutio pictures as our green cloth to play on. 4-player games, Stein each corner, that kind of thing. Yeah, that's really nice. This is a game in progress. This is what. It's not obviously not, but that's what it's supposed to represent. But this is great. This is basically, look at this picture. Like, that's what I want to do. This is a game. I want to play it.
Well, this is me and you, mate. This is me and the orcs, and you and the Eldar.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I've got 5. Oh, actually, just below the monitor, I've got 5 fire dragons. Mine aren't painted as well as that. They don't have back banners, but yeah, they're on my table.
Nice.
The Warlock, and then the Striking Scorpions and the Exarch as well. Nice, yeah.
Yep, beautiful models. Yeah, I hope
to building.
Yeah, I hope to one day do a commission for the Eldar. I think David's got a lot of these models in the US for me to paint one day for him. So I really look forward to doing that because it's one of my. I love doing the the Warlocks for you. And, Rangers, of course, as well. The Eldar Rangers, Scouts.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really love to do like a Rogue Trader type army for Eldar. That'd be beautiful to do and play them eventually, or see them played and kill them. Hopefully with my orcs. Some point in the future. But they're beautiful models, and I think that's just a picturesque Rogue Trader era, peak era for me. The peak era models. For me, for that kind of thing. So
this looks really nice. Yeah, definitely. When you see that kind of thing, that's just like really makes you want to have that.
Well, mate, it's been a real pleasure to chat with you today. Thanks again, Nick, for coming on to talk all about your first White Dwarf. And I look forward to seeing you this weekend, mate, so we can get to play some Warhammer. So looking forward to that.
Definitely. Look forward to it. Yeah, I'll see you on Saturday.
Okay, mate. Well, until then, take care and and I'll get to speak to you soon.
Yeah. Bye bye.
Thanks, mate. Bye bye.